good afternoon, good evening, whenever you stumble upon this video. I'm MJ, I'm the founder of Ultra Love. I host this channel. I'm a professional tarot reader, yoga teacher, and I've been on an intuitively guided journey, and I'm really happy to be here. My Patreons tend to get live links, so Patreons have access to joining the live shares. There's a lot of content on this channel, even from many years ago. There's a fair bit of predictive, spiritually guided shares from as early as 2014, and I started sharing in 2012. So it's been quite a journey on the online landscape. And I've got my cards out. I felt guided, and also I had a client and internet friend ask about like just working with the cards in such a way to intuit more of a global landscape of things. I'm thinking obviously of America right now. We lost a pope, which is really symbolic, I would say, of spiritual order and even pointing to um, archaic patriarchal structures. And I try to explain things in as broad a way as possible to not get too lost in words. And we call patriarchy, I refer to it as like old paradigm, or the world of separation, a world of fear, right? Separation to me is like fear and separation go together, versus unity and love. And it's looking at our perspective as a whole. Patriarchy, old paradigm, you could also look at it like um, some people call it the matrix. Some people call it a three-dimensional or the 3D world, right? At the end of the day, regardless, we as individuals cohabitating and sharing this planet are perceiving, right? And it's our perception that a lot of our ancient spiritual teachings or broad spiritual teachings are pointing to. And a lot of us that have gone through transformation and might be perceived as spiritual are really just working within that kind of gate of like feeling. And that's where for me yoga practice come in, yoga, meditation, and these traditions really help me to embody it. So like, because we are a total system, the feelings and the thoughts and all that stuff is part of the coordinations that we're all constantly working with. So that we're getting the download, I get the feels. I'm an intuitive reader, so it's all intuitive, as in it's all just like feeling and sensing and working with the bod. Channeling a little bit more of the essence of quantum healing. So when I work with people, I work really with the tarot, astrology, and yoga, right? Working on bringing people into their bodies and channeling intuitive messages. The astrology and certainly the transit chart readings that I share with people are usually just pointing or affirming like stuff going on psychologically, spiritually, physically. And then things like the yoga, meditation, what have you, I leave people's personal choices really to them, right? Because we're all in our lives. Look at the hair. Wee, woo! It looks like I'm, I don't know, like on a boat or something. I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope, you're flowing with the energies. I hope your bodies are doing okay. Divine guidance and loving clarity here. We're going to look at global events. Any global events. I'm recording this and broadcasting this to my Patreon community on April 22nd. So in different parts of the world, we've just celebrated the Easter holiday. I'm not for many years. I don't really kind of follow like the modern holiday thing. I kind of think it's all interesting that we abide by these Roman calendars and try to fit ourselves into these boxes. At the same time, things like sleep, rest, eating in a way that you feel is like loving towards yourself and the planet. I've found myself naturally moving towards just like natural whole food, ideally organic, ideally local. And the more kind of, in a sense, basic it is, the better. So global events, there's a big release point coming up. Divine guidance, love, and clarity. We're going to look at the global events, divine guidance, and love and clarity for anyone and everyone who stumbles upon this video. So this energy is like, I'm hearing, mass migration. There's a lot of forced movement. So it's not people's free will necessarily. This is energy that's out of people's control. A little bit disturbed, but deeply karmic. Having to look on the horizon, having to look at, legit, I think of images from Gaza when people were walking back and the long sojourn, or just mass migration in that war-torn sense of people walking across deserts and people force. So it's full reverse, like they're just being forced into these new beginnings. I'm hearing, okay, so I'm tuning in. What's the signature for the six of wand and the 6 of cup reverse? So at what cost? Energetically, there could be a sense of triumph. Emotionally, there could be a sense of loss. There could be a sense of disconnection, possibly, with loved ones, with family. This is like, so 10 of wands is the central energy, which is weighty, heavy. Anyone who kind of tunes in to the collective usually can tune into a bit of that weight. There's a lot of fire energy here, which does make me think of Neptune moving into Aries. Neptune is a big spiritual, conceptual, planetary movement. And, like Pluto moving into Aquarius and then Neptune moving in fire and air, like stoking that fire. Even again, this symbolic nature of the Pope, a leader of a Roman Catholic institution, which is super duper backbone oriented to our patriarchal structures, right? Divide and conquer, denying the feminine. And even with like a rise of empathy and seeming expression in alignment more with empathic and compassionate feelings, right? That it might appear at first glance that there's some sort of like the fear is winning, the dominance is winning. Like we're gonna do this and we're gonna break up families and we're gonna we're not gonna stand for that level of empathy or compassion. But again, the symbolic nature of that passing with regard to the collective point of attraction and shifting paradigms, globally speaking, that the figureheads. And, you know, it was only a few years ago that we had Queen Elizabeth passing, and an evolution of our consciousness where more and more people are speaking to the rather brutal and ancestral trauma connected to these ruling empires and or institutions which sort of align with colonialism and imperialistic structures, right? So and of course the divide and conquer, when you're really open-minded, you can see that structure being played out with all the media narratives and typically within the psyche of a lot of people, you know, choosing a side, blaming and attacking other, versus a more holistic, unified perspective of we are one and we all are endeavoring to make a choice. So releasing the burden of the weight of that ancestral lineage, releasing the weight of the divide and conquer, success and failure, men and women, allowing people. So something just dropped in about that. There's a recent thing happening in the UK regarding the trans community, which like even the fact that these ruling energies have to define, or have to, rather than just letting people be and having you know, access. And that's essentially the vicious cycle, you could say, of aligning with divide and conquer and or fear-based ideology is perpetuating it, versus, like, you know, living in unity and healing those divisive constructs and allowing people to express themselves in their authentic truth, versus people who want people to fall into line. So the justice over top, the sort of truth I often hear with this card, a higher order beyond man-made law. So like a lot of these laws and structures are just fucking weighty, and they're corrupting the mind. It's a corruption of the mind of humanity to carry this much weight, this much burden from our past. So the sword of truth is really coming in to cut it loose. But this forced migration, these forced displacements, this, I get a sense of like having disturbed thinking, but a lot of energetics where we don't even have time to even go there because we have to move. We have to do this. So that's like another thing, is like people choosing to move. Haste, like with haste, like I want to get out of this country. I want to get out of this place. I want to get out of this job. Seeming success, but at what cost? Yeah, and it's like we really collectively want to be moving to a renewal, love, unity, a wellspring of energetics. It's been coming for a while, but the divine love, the divine spark within us all that allows that cup to be full, requires us to honor the body, listen to the body, feel the subtle sensations of the body in sort of as we're interfacing with our personal reality. Personally, I tend to connect a lot with nature and being outside and living in a relatively rural, well, very rural, kind of quiet countryside. So there isn't a lot of collective distraction or noise, which serves my own path to listen and channel messages rather than being a part of that. And my many years ago, but still part of my journey, having sort of found that quietude and spaciousness, and then gone through my own sort of chaos and transformation to sort of reset my life, ending back in a city where it was like very apparent to me that the collective frequencies often in cities and stuff like that are there's a buzz and a kind of perpetual noise and frequency that's difficult to escape, I'm hearing, but also like it's sort of hive mind and group mind oriented. At the same time, that's where people feel more isolated. Like cognitive dissonance, I'm hearing. So more people in larger city constellations will feel like I have to go home, or I have to get out of this city, or there's something chaotic happening, I think, in more and more cities where, again, the mass migration, the mass movement, the turbulence, the violence, the increasing reflective expression of that violence, and the way we honor it through the original sin of that disconnection and fear-mongering. It's like the truth versus temptation. Major, big major changes. So the star card is making me think of, okay, how do we keep ourselves safe in all of this? Retreat, be cleansed, and focus on your own divine healing and vision. It's hard work, which is where a lot of people want to attack it, want to be like, you're stupid, or how dare you be so selfish. It's like, well, I can choose to be connected to my divine spark in nature, healing my alchemical body, to be a star, a guiding light for other, or kind of sell out, right? Because the devil is here, so there are temptations to be bound. Temptations to be bound to the old structures because it appears powerful. Woo! So there's a lot of like divinity here as far as like being called, answering the call. So in this judgment card, the angel, good morning, Scott. The angel is sounding a horn of sorts, sounding a call, like the trumpet. Now, we can be enlivened. We can open ourselves to that call. It makes me think, though, of staying grounded in the regenesis, though. As much as we can be mindful of negative energy, to be mindful of high vibratory energy. This is where I speak to even re-editing my own book so that we don't get trapped in the idea of seeking higher vibration all the time. Rather like a neutral, grounded, present space where we can be aware of those fluctuations of energy and know our center, which is knowing our worth, our deservedness, right? The star card does make me think, though, like, again, healing into your own divinity, healing into your own connection to the cosmos, which is more aligned with divinity than focusing on the travesty or the divide and conquer energetics of parts of the earthly paradigm. This is quite intense. This death card is really giving me a sense of like death as a sacred energy will take the fallen. That feels really like deep to me. I don't even quite know how to fully like, but that's the message. So we either follow the call into more lighter angelic divine realms, or we fall and then are consumed by death. And it has a lot to do with our attachments. and what we're bound to energetically. What we choose to align with. Are we going to be weighted down? Are we going to remain attached to the old constructs, to the external authority, to enslavement in whatever way we perceive that? Or are we going to be open to a more divine truth? I just heard a message then about like holding space for the fact that that's not everyone's choosing, and that's not what's available for anyone and everyone either. This is where a lot of people, I think, go into that space of simulation, and like you're working with your own personal computer game, and that I feel like I want to call them NCP, non as in they're like players in video games, but they don't have like a full personality. They're just like bots almost. But then that also leads me to be like, also bearing in mind that isn't to dehumanize people, although that could be perceived that way, certainly, but it's more to do with how, like, in our personal reality, there are players, expressions, people that are not necessarily as significant to us, and also that that's their role. I'm just going to play this role. I'm just going to play this role. I'm going to play my role. Right? So my role is like an NCP to some other people. And I'm also getting a sense of like, for more and more of us, we want to create less importance on the important people and more importance on the people that are actually in our reality. So that's, I think, a fracture of narcissism, or not that I am an expert on that, but there's a dissociative energy around like so and so, like talking as if we know people because they're in the media or because they're important or because they're wealthy, rather than like honoring the people in our lives and ourselves as the important players, and to work through the energetic base tones or the densities within us that make us think that we're not important or that we're not, well, those people. But in a sense, that's another classist way to divide and conquer. I always think of that lowest common denominator. If we individually, in a collective agreement, if we all were looking after ourselves and our local community, we wouldn't be in the shitstorms that we're in, as far as like giving these external authority bodies or energetic so much power. But here we are. And the more we allow that system to take us, to take our power away, the more we'll see the pulling apart and the fracturing of the system itself. Because who's next, right? As far as like these camps and these things, and some of the words, like, again, I don't even want to express the words anymore because I don't want to give that power in my reality. Words that align with things like war versus focusing on our creative expressiveness and our benevolence as spiritual beings that have infinite power connected to eternal grace and create and beautiful, radiant creativity on all forms, right? That we can support and love ourselves and one another in the connection to our divinity. Look at the star card, it's so saucy. And that star card, as she pours the water, she's in the water. You know, like we are that too. But bearing in mind these old systems that are dying, or the false matrices that are no longer as deeply embedded or anchored on this planet, those disappear as the collective starts to move their consciousness into a different focus. It's deep. And it can be challenging, but we have to let go. We have to release the burden. We have to trust in everyone's unique divine journey. That's part of, for example, my own personal journey. A lot of my own inner wounding and child wounding has been like healing the bleeding heart, healing the responsibility that it's all mine to fix, or it's all my responsibility to change the world and fix the world. No, I only have to focus on what I'm carrying, to let it down, to let it go. I focus on the truth within self. There's a bittersweetness to that. There's a grief to that. That we all go through our pain and challenge, and that everyone's pain and challenge is their own contracts, their own spiritual order. Just like we die. Like we all know temptation, we all know fear, we all know heaven, we all know hell. Through our own experiential process. That's part of the divinity of this life. Coming into these bodies and wow. Feeling the density of these physical bodies. I appreciate that card. It's the Empress energy. 3. Think of a trinity. I really love the color pink and the trees, which makes me think of emanating that divine love frequency, a rose quartz. Healing the heart through a greater sense of love and connectivity. I think of the mycelium of, the electrical kind of network underground of things like mushrooms and trees, and how it's all interconnected to be the expression. The expression looks like little individual mushrooms, little individual trees, but the network of roots and the root system is totally connected, and so are we. That's part of what these medicinal plants want to teach us and reflect to us, is our interconnectivity, our merging with the totality of what we witness and experience here. Vibrational. It makes me think of that film Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny, and when he has a mushroom trip, he eats some mushrooms in the forest, and when he starts to feel it, he goes juicy, and the juicy and sort of technicolor bubble form comes out of his mouth, and then he has this wild trip with the Sasquatch. Vibrational. When we get into that energetic, when we align with our heart, soul, and mind, keep chipping away at it, keep working on it, right? What else? Like, I think of like the intensity of labor, workforce, the grind, the 9 to 5, the rat race. Like, my experience of so-called spiritual work or shadow work, or what are words, right? But like, it's the same, but just at a polar. It's like deep inner work is still work. When we're committed to that evolutionary process. Like being committed to regenerate oneself, being committed to healing our emotional codes and programs and patterns has required equivalent, same, but opposite ends of a so-called, like what they look like, of excavating those densities, those programs, to be born again, to be renewed. Right, just like the false ideation is that work hard and then one day you'll be able to chill. Work hard and then one day thinking, well, why don't I chill, do the inner work, and then be open to the miracle of life? Rather than following a program of my ancestors, which personally my body just knew that's not going to work for me. I'll die young. I won't be able to be of service. I won't be able to heed the call. I'll just be stifled and not aligned. And it's been years and years of fine-tuning that the sense of self, and sort of collapsing the sort of scaffolding of a word that was upholding false constructs that I would have been indoctrinated by and inherited through the essence of my being and the lineage that I was born into. Detaching from the mind is a useful practice, being guided by the light, but not being guided by too much high vibratory inspiration. I learned that just through life experience. I was going to say I learned it the hard way. Is it? I don't know. It was, you learn tough lessons, but you learn them well when you learn them through experience, right? And I quickly realized in business, for example, that making a decision from a low vibrator, like being depressive and making a decision, was not going to give me the outcome I desired, but nor was making like an excitable, ungrounded decision. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And then same. It didn't pan out. It didn't work out. There were losses. So yeah. Central, neutral, Halashazamness. And yet, embrace it all. It's like learning to love ourselves and accept ourselves in the highs and the lows. And knowing that we're all exiting at some point. The divine spark that alives this body is still gonna like, see ya, like still gonna go at some point, and that's okay, because who wants to be attached to this density of realms? But isn't it beautiful to know that we're ushering in something a bit better, like something just like a little bit less traumatic and painful, something where leadership is more compassionate, curious, and empathic, where it's true that leaders actually care for their people, and that the people are trained in an enlightenment type of practice and education rather than like indoctrination to keep the slave masters in power. Like, yeah, once we see it for what it is what it is, and then we can move on. And it will take a little time, time, because, well, what is it? I don't know. I sometimes also like to think quantum shift here now, bosh. The more we do, the quicker we go. The more the waves are ushering in those higher vibratories, the more the waves are ushering in the higher vibratories, and the quicker the evolution will kind of pick up. Work hard and all this could be yours. Yeah. Like a tombstone. Final few cards for y'all lovers. Holla Shazam. Yeah, I feel this, like, since Neptune went into air, and again, I'm not an expert in astrology, but I do dig on it as reflective self-awareness stuff. But the Atman, so this image is like connected to all these tiers of vision with the eye, and I have been guided towards it, and in the last few days have been implementing the work where instead of just rushing into the grind of the day, or even on autopilot doing things, it's slowing down. As Scott knows, like, there's been a lot of sleep, restore, reset, and then these last, like, over this Easter weekend, just finally like meditating in the morning. Oh God, meditation is just so juicy. It really is, like, claiming the time. There's no rush. There's no pressure. Because to me, new paradigm has to be lived. So why would I want to be in another rat race? Why would I want, from a kind of deeper spiritual connective of the betterment for all, if we were to reshape our working paradigm, why would I work 12 hours a day? Because spiritual entrepreneur, working, like the rat race I'm trying to undo, right? So it's like coming back into like just looking after bod, looking after self, spending time in nature, Hala Shazam, quiet, listen. And then trust that the voices, the words, the vibration are being emanated. Yeah, that card came up for myself a little earlier, basically just reflecting exactly what I'm saying with Vesta, Hearth, is that we're tending to our own flame. There's a reason those control forces or whatever are wanting to pull people's attention into what they want people to think and feel about. When you start tending to your own flame and experiencing positive or perceived better feeling experiences through tending to your own flame, the game is up. Like, oh, so it's that simple. So I stop listening to those people telling me what to think and feel, and I start feeling what I'm authentically feeling and working through those shadows to keep stoking the flame. So keeping my own home warm and clean and clear, being the example, right? Being the change rather than everybody, you guys need to change, everybody freaking out about how everybody needs to change, because I can't control the totality. That's part of the kind of distortion of language around like we're all our own God. Well, there's an essence of that empowerment, but it's not about powering over one another. It's not my divine choice, right? My choice is just for my own. Slept like a baby. Same. Which is juicy. And I heard from a fellow, Marky P, and he's also been sleeping better. And so there's a huge shifting with crew energy around deeper sleep, more quietude, being an open holder of space for people in your environment, right? As you expressed. Balance. Focusing on that balance, right? That's kind of like what I was talking about, like high vibratory, low vibratory, low vibratory, high vibratory. And like knowing that too much of one is off kilter either way. So we're always working to come back to balance and the intention of that. Which again, there are tools. Meditation, Tai Chi, yoga. These are all somewhat ancient tools that I would say predate a lot of our Roman empirical constructs of divide and conquer, and are simply people being guided from within self to anchor into their truth and then express about it, share it with people, you know. And there's no division, there's no like right, wrong, good, bad. It's just the self coming to greater unity within the self. Totally. And that's something I definitely have like, okay, chill, you know, like I'm not kind of, and or I'm also holding space for certain realities to download and express themselves, i.e. manifest, but to hold it rather than get too excited about it. So being able to hold space for bliss and ecstasy and still sleep and still hang out and do whatever it is that I'm meant to do or we're meant to do or anything like that, right? As a collective. That's part of it, is like collective agreement coming pretty strong. I think that's the share for today. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And all the patrons. So yeah, patrons get ad-free first access. You can check the links in the description. If you want to join the Patreon community, top tiers get discounts, access to the Be the Change courses. You can go check out my website. You can buy my book. You can buy products on the T-Mail store. Thank you. One of you recently got a t-shirt, so holla. And that's supporting, really, to me, new paradigm and collaborative business models where we're all just helping each other out to create. I think that's it, you guys. And then, of course, feel free to book a private reading and all that jazz. People are welcome to book a consultation for yoga and or regular like spiritual development support and coming back into self. So feel free to reach out. Subscribe to Ultra Love. I usually send shout outs about once a month or so. I'm getting back into writing and blogging as well. So I appreciate you loads. Have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Peace out.